Well, hey you guys, welcome to TV Rod. This is going to be a really awkward video because I'm so unaccustomed to doing talk videos like this, but I've been knowing for a long time that I need to start making talk videos. I think this is going to be some of my better videos for you guys. I do have interesting things to say, according to some people anyway. So I just decided that I need to really get started, get the practice going, and so this is the first in what hopefully is going to be an unending series of talk videos along with my other type of videos that I'm going to be making. So I'm just going to roll with it with all of the awkwardness, goofs, mistakes, bloopers and all that, no editing. I'm just going to go straight through. Well, what I want to talk about today is an annual tradition that I have. I like to celebrate the 1969 Woodstock Music and Art Fair, which occurred in about mid-August in 1969. Now, that's before my time, therefore I wasn't at the concert and I didn't really experience the hippie days, but just somehow it's fun to celebrate every year. And I think we need to have things that we look forward to every year, every week, every month, every so often, as well as spontaneous fun things to do. So the event took place in around mid-August and it was in New York State. It was basically a big music festival that turned out to be a whole lot bigger than was expected. So, well, why do I celebrate it? Well, just for fun. And I'm kind of a nostalgic guy. I love 20th century history, and just the whole vibe of the late 60s intrigues me. So you had the hippie movement, and which is really different from the way I am. I'm kind of clean cut, you know, straight-laced conservative, so you kind of wonder why would I even be interested in it, in the hippie movement. Well, it's something different, but it's not just the hippie movement in the late 60s that intrigued me. It was the space program, the getting ready to go to the moon, and the muscle car era, which I'm fortunate to have a vehicle from that era, my 67 Mustang. So let's just get into what was a hippie. Oh, and I do have a reason for you to stick around. There's a very famous member of the hippie movement named Peggy Caserta, who was actually a personal friend of mine. More about that later. But so anyway, what was the hippie movement? Well, it was young people questioning traditional authority. They thought that their 1950s upbringing was too straight-laced, too uptight or whatever, so they started dressing, shall we say, very, very casually and having long, sometimes unkempt hair, and they loved to go around saying groovy and peace and things like that. They were opposed to the Vietnam War. They loved their music. They dabbled around in Eastern religions, and they were just into peace and love and freedom of expression. And some of the stuff they did, I can agree with. Some I couldn't. But this really isn't about that. But this is about the Woodstock Festival, and some people did call it a hippie fest. There were a lot of hippies and hippie posers, or whatever you want to call them there. So what was Woodstock? How did it happen? Well, it took place August 15th through 18th, 1969 in Bethel, New York. They expected about 50,000 people. They got about 500,000. They really weren't ready for that. And they had crowds that overwhelmed their facilities, their ability to feed people and sanitation and all that. It was a crazy time. And there was a lot of backup, a lot of traffic backed up too. So the way it got started was there were these two guys, and by the way, I'm wearing my Woodstock shirt, 3 days of peace, love, and music. So these two guys named Michael Lang and Artie Kornfeld with a K, they got together and they wanted to have a music festival, concert, outdoor type venue to raise money for a recording studio. They wanted to build a recording studio, and they thought that the concert would be a way to get the money to build the studio. So they started organizing the event, and they got some of the biggest names of the time to sign up for it, to play. And unfortunately, kind of at the last minute, Woodstock, New York pulled their permit. There were a lot of people that were just like, hey, we don't want these crowds, we don't want the hippies. So they had to scramble for another place. They really had to look. So they found in Bethel, New York, a 600-acre piece of a dairy farm owned by a man named Max Yasgur. And so they were able to rent this big field, and it was a perfect place for it because it was kind of bowl shaped, so it wasn't flat, so the people in the back could see, and they didn't have to try to look over the people in front of them. It was kind of like a stadium where there was a slope, and it was sort of semicircular with the focal point being at the stage itself. So the concert was coming up, and they were running out of time. So they started selling tickets, and here's a supposedly actual real ticket to the event. I can't be totally sure it's real, but they started selling tickets, and they started building their facilities, mainly the stage. And interestingly enough, I actually have a piece of that stage, and here's a certificate of authenticity. And the way I found this was I came across a news article online about how they had found the materials from where the stage was torn down. And by the way, here's a necklace with a tiny piece of the stage on it right here. Isn't that cool? I've got a piece of the actual event here with me. So these people, they came across where the materials were, where the stage had been dismantled, and they started selling bits and pieces of it in different forms, some like what I have, and then there's these little vials of shaved wood shavings and different things that they have that they offer. I think it's called pieceofstage.com or something where you go. So I looked them up, and everything looked legit and everything. So I got some memorabilia that is supposedly actually from the event itself. So they started building the stage and the ticket booths and everything, but then the construction contractor came to them and said, we just don't have time to build everything you need. It's going to be the stage or the ticket booths and the fence and everything that goes with collecting tickets. So the producers decided, okay, well, forget the tickets, forget even taking up the tickets, we're going to make it a free concert. Now, the thing I don't understand is, why couldn't they have hired another contractor to do the ticket booth if their original contractor couldn't do the stage and the ticket booth? I don't know. But they declared, hey, this is going to be a free concert. Anybody that wants to come, just come. Ticket, no tickets, show up. Well, everybody started heading that way. And while they were expecting a crowd of 50,000, like I said, you had 500,000 people show up. It was insane. And there were another 1.5 million, so I read, people who were trying to get there, and with the traffic just being all blocked, interstates closed and everything, because it was just bumper to bumper traffic, nobody was moving, they just abandoned their cars and walked. So you had 500,000 people there, and another 1.5 million people trying to get there that never made it. And remember, this is back in the day when there was only the total population of the United States, men, women, children, everything, was only about 200 million. So basically you had 2 million people of that demographic, the young adult guys and some girls, trying to get to this concert. So it's almost like everybody was trying to go there. And it's really interesting to think some people came from faraway places, and cars weren't like they are now. You didn't have air conditioning in every car. In fact, so I'm told, back in the late 60s, if you were seen at summertime running around in your car with the windows up, that meant you had air conditioning and therefore you were rich. So these people piled in these unair conditioned cars mostly, probably overloaded the cars, you know, and they didn't, I would imagine most of them didn't think about taking really anything with them that much, you know, like coolers and extra clothes and water and food and all that. You know, of course, nowadays people would have their $300 Yeti ice chest and of course their phones and all kinds of creature comforts, but not then. People just piled in the car as many people as it would hold and drove however many hundreds or thousands of miles it was to get there. So it was absolute chaos. It's something that had never happened before and would never happen again. They actually tried to have a anniversary special in 1999, and it was chaos, but not in a good way. Crime, fights, stealing, all kinds of things. But at the original concert with all those people there were basically no issues. They did have a hamburger stand mysteriously burned down, and I read that was because they were overcharging, and so some people didn't like it, they burnt the place down. But as far as fights, robberies, all kinds of crimes, nothing, just peace, love, and music. They did have 2 fatalities at the event. There was a 17-year-old guy sleeping under a trailer that was connected to a tractor, and the next morning they moved the trailer without realizing he was under there. And then there was another one that was supposedly a drug overdose. So, but I also heard there were 2 babies born there. So it was almost like a city, but a very poorly supplied city because they didn't expect so many people. For example, it's my understanding that in a sports stadium, the norm, or maybe even the code, is to have 1 toilet for every 45 people. Well, at Woodstock they had portable toilets, 1 for every 800 people. And as far as food, they had this hippie commune called the Hog Farm that made basic food for them, and other charities and things brought in food, water, and supplies. But it was a wild time. And so some of the artists that were there, Richie Havens, Joan Baez, Santana, The Who, Jefferson Airplane, Janis Joplin, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and Jimi Hendrix. It's really interesting. Jimi Hendrix, he was the last one to play, and he played a rendition of the Star Spangled Banner. And you might think, well, gee, you got all these people that are inclined to protest and be against the Vietnam War and a lot of things the United States government was doing. Why would you play the Star Spangled Banner? Well, he played it in actually kind of a protest way. He was amazing with the electric guitar. Like, he made sound effects playing the guitar that sounded like the Vietnam War, like bombs falling and exploding and everything, as he played the Star Spangled Banner. And that was the very last song of the concert. But you had horrendous traffic, and just some of the performers couldn't even get there. They had to fly in by chartered helicopters. And one thing that happened during the event, and some say there's conspiracy theorists that says it was the U.S. government behind it, but there was a terrible rainstorm. So you had all this rain, and then it just created mud. It was just really a mess. And but everybody shared what they had. They didn't fight. They didn't argue. They took care of each other, and it's just something you wouldn't find. And just such a lack of violence and a lack of crime. And so it just seems like something really cool. So how do I celebrate it? Well, I put on my Woodstock t-shirt, and I like to watch the documentaries and movies and things I find on YouTube and read articles and things like that. But for me, I'm not sitting out in the August heat outside in the weather. I'm in my nice comfortable home in my nice comfortable chair celebrating it. So for me, it's a little bit different than the real thing. And I do invite anybody that wants to come, but also some of my boomer friends and relatives who weren't at the festival but were around back then. And it's just fun. Now, I had mentioned, I gave you a little bit of a spoiler before about Peggy Caserta. She was a big part of the hippie movement. I would say one of the founders. The hippie movement started in San Francisco, California, specifically at an area around this intersection called Haight, H-E-I-G-H-T, and Asbury. That was where it all started in about 1965. And Peggy had a store there at the time. And in some of the documentaries they'll show they actually had tour buses that would go through the hippie area just to show the regular, as they call, uptight society, to show them the whole world of the hippies. So anyway, Peggy was a big part of it. She had a store there that has a name I cannot pronounce. And she was very good friends with one of the performers I just mentioned, Janis Joplin. And Peggy actually wrote a book. You can get it on Amazon. I ran into some trouble. And she shared with me a couple of pictures of her and Janis Joplin from the concert. Isn't that cool? They come from Peggy herself. And that's Peggy. So she was my neighbor, and from what I remember from the book, she was born in Covington, Louisiana, not very far from here, and somehow at some point ended up in my town to take care of her elderly mother. And Peggy lived just up the road from me, and I did not know it until shortly before the end. Before she's passed away now, but a couple of years before she passed away, she went to Southern California, she said, to work on a movie as an advisor or something, but she never came back. Maybe she went into poor health or whatever. So I only knew her a short time before she moved away. And it was so interesting because people know that I'm kind of into the whole Woodstock and hippie thing, you know, because it's just something different. It's something I've never experienced, and it's just intriguing. And they would drop hints that there was a lady very much connected to the event that lived just up the road. But you know how people are these days. Everybody's so paranoid. They didn't want to tell me exactly what her full name is, who she is, exactly which house. So I kind of finally figured it out, pulled some of the information out of people and just figure out what was what. So I got her name and her house. So I looked for her on social media. I wanted to make contact and meet her. I found nothing. And as it turns out, she really didn't follow technology or anything like that. She was somewhat reclusive. So what I did was actually drove up the road and got the house number and wrote her a snail mail letter and just kind of told her a little bit about how I'm interested in the movement. I'd like to meet her, and I gave her my phone number, and she called. So she came to one of my Woodstock celebrations, and I was absolutely starstruck. You know, just one of the founders of the movement. I believe she said she actually invented the bell-bottom jeans. All these things was coming to my Woodstock event. I was starstruck. And I'll never forget when I was expecting her to come and I heard the doorbell. I ran excitedly over to the door and answered it. And somehow in my mind, I was expecting, I don't know why, but a young, beautiful lady with long, straight hair. You know, I was picturing hippie girls in the hippie days, and I just kind of forgotten, hey, more than half a century's passed since then. So I opened the door and I was kind of shocked. There was like just a standard looking elderly lady there, and I was like, what? I was taken aback for a minute. I guess my mind was just so into the whole vibe of the hippie days and all that. So she came in and I was showing her the DVDs and Blu-rays and that I would just mention, and she was seeing this footage for the first time since the actual event, and she was literally in tears at one or two points, and like she would go, look, I sold him those pants, and all this kind of stuff, and she was naming these people and everything. It was just amazing, and like I said, I was starstruck. So that's my annual Woodstock celebration, and once again, I think it's great to have things to look forward to, short term, medium term, long term, and I think recurring annual things are great. I love seasonal stuff. You're going to find that out as you follow me in my channel, but I also love spontaneous, spur of the moment stuff. So that's my story of the Woodstock Music and Art Fair. Thank you for joining me this evening. Rod out.